A new report out this morning from the Montreal Economist Institute finds that for the average Canadian family, tariffs on American goods flowing north cost, on average, $92 in new taxes, equaling to around $1.51 billion in just April and May alone.
So joining us now to talk more about this is Emanuelle Faubert, economist at the Montreal Economic Institute. Emanuelle, appreciate your time this morning. $92 may not sound like a whole lot, but once you add that up throughout the year, that's a pretty significant additional tax or cost to a Canadian family, isn't it?
Definitely. So we're talking about $91.50 for a household, but that's just April and May. And if we look for the whole year, we're talking more about $548 per household for a year by next March 2026, if this continues. And this represents a lot for Canadian families.
Yeah, and if this trend continues, with Prime Minister Mark Carney saying that a deal, that's hashed out by that August 1st deadline is probably going to include some form of a tariff, whether it's tariffs from the U.S. or counter tariffs from Canada, this is really going to add up because these are just another way taxes for Canadian businesses and families.
Definitely. The same way when Trump was talking about tariffs the first time, in Canada, we're trying to tell Americans, listen, having a tariff for Canadian goods means a new tax for Americans. But the same is true for Canadian counter tariffs. So having counter tariffs means more taxes for Canadians, and consumers and households are the ones who's going to pay for it.
And so, Emanuelle, what is the sort of economic fallout from that if, Canadian families and businesses continue to pay more than they had perhaps budgeted for or anticipating? Clearly, there are negative results to that.
Definitely. So, as we were saying, and the vast majority of those costs are being handed down to households, essentially, because it's gone down to consumers through increased prices, but also it can lead to lower wages and loss of jobs. And let's just think back to when the tariffs were first announced. There were a lot of layoffs in prevention for those tariffs. So it has a lot of negative impact on not just consumers, but Canadians as a whole.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem that U.S. President Donald Trump is getting the message. We heard from former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, who says he was recruited by the Carney government to help with these negotiations and the trade talks, say that, the economic policy of the United States using tariffs as a form of growth is a flawed one. That's not the way. And you seem to agree with him, to think that, we should be tearing down these tariffs in order to boost our GDP.
Definitely, because it is commerce. It is all that industrialization and commerce between the whole world that allowed us to grow and create more wealth for the whole world. Let's just think about the fact that Canada and the U.S. are very much integrated. Let's think about, for example, airplanes. Canada produces a lot of aluminum, which is essential for making planes. Boeing, an American company, uses a lot more aluminum than what the U.S. produces. So they need Canadian aluminum in order to make their planes. Right now, most likely in offices for Boeing, they're really crunching numbers to see what they're going to do. And in the meantime, who's benefiting? It's Airbus and other companies that are international that don't have those tariffs and can produce and sell around the world. And what we're seeing is that it's not just final products, it's inputs. For example, that aluminum, which is necessary to make planes, or other paper, wood, all those input products.
Absolutely. Okay. It's a real cycle indeed. Emanuelle Faubert, economist at the Montreal Economic Institute. Do appreciate the time this morning. Thanks for talking more about your study today. Appreciate this.
Thank you.
My pleasure.